I'm curious for you, what is like one key thing that comes up for you when you think about what you learned from surrendering completely as a submissive?
Mm, I wow. I get flooded with emotion when you ask that question because it's just so fucking profound what I went through. But I'll say it was a level of trust in myself. Yes, I trusted my dom, but what I got out of that was trusting myself. Like the fact that I could, I mean, I flew out to LA for this session with this person that I had never met, and and I'm at an Airbnb. No one knows where I am, and I'm like trusting that this person's gonna dom me for the next 90 minutes. There's so much trust, and that was the biggest thing that I walked away with because I didn't have a lot of trust, given the shit show that was my life.
Hmm.
Since I left everything behind, it was hard to trust,
Yeah.
but I found that, and it stuck with me.
Yeah. What was it about Yosef that you felt like you could trust him so deeply?
The level of negotiation beforehand, before the scene. So for anyone listening that wants to do a scene with someone, there is like heavy negotiation happening beforehand, and there should be. And the negotiation that Joseph and I had, like we would go back and forth, and he would like he wanted crystal clear clarity on why I wanted what I wanted and making sure that it was what I wanted. And that level of clarity helped me feel like, oh, this person actually wants the best for me,
Hmm.
which I had already felt. I mean, we were working together for 3 months.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, that negotiation is key, key, key. You're familiar with it, I presume.
Yeah. I've done a fair amount. Um, wh- One of the things I remember him asking you, and you kind of just spoke to this, was almost like literally asking you that kind of deeper question of like, why is it that you're wanting to submit, or like, what is it you're wanting to relinquish out of
Mm,
control? And I remember it because it was like it was interesting because he kind of turned the tables on you on your own podcast and sort of like asking you those questions almost live, and it really struck me because I love that question because it went to that deeper place of like why do you want to actually get out of this? Like
mm,
my ex used to ask a question that I really love. Is just like, how do you want to basically what are you wanting to feel from this scene? Like what are you wanting to create from it, rather than just looking at the like, do you want rope or do you not want rope? Do you want this thing or
mm,
not this thing?
mm.
It's really like what's more the feeling that you're wanting to create, or how do you want to explore? Yeah,
Oh my God, yeah. Are you talking about the one that I did with Joseph
I
a
think it was
while
prior,
ago?
the one that was prior. Yeah.
Oh my God, I want to listen to that because that would be so trippy to listen to because it was so long ago. Um, but to your point about the feeling, I had just talked about this on my email that the feeling part creates so much more depth within kink. Like, yeah, you can tell me you want rope, but if you tell me, Karina, I want rope and I want to feel super degraded and I want to feel super like the feeling, like then you
Mm,
can, there's so much more to play with there.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you take a lot of what you learned from him into when you started doming, like the different submissives that you have? And yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I
Mm,
took his tips and tricks and made them my own. I honestly I feel like every dom should be a sub at some point in time to know what that
mm,
feels like.
mm-hmm. What are some of the key things? I mean, you mentioned negotiation, but is there anything else that you really took away from the way that he approaches things? Or
Yeah, he does this really cool thing where well, he did it for me anyway, was that before we physically met up for maybe an hour beforehand, he so we agreed to go into the dynamic of dom and sub an hour before. And within that hour, he was telling me, like, okay, you're going to go here and you're going to order this. And then you're going to go to this coffee shop and you're going to order this.
mm,
And then you're going to, like, he was telling me what to order, what to put inside of my fucking body,
mm,
and how to dress and how to put my hair. And that put me into such a subspace. And so
mm,
that's what I did with my subs. Before they were allowed into my place, I would tell them to go and do X thing, go run X errand, show up at this very specific time. You can only knock on the door at this very specific time. Don't knock before, don't knock after. Like these very, very strict little things before physically meeting helps put someone into subspace so much more. Like once they
yeah.
show up, they're like, I've been surrendered to you.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're like mentally dominating them essentially beforehand, right? And
Yeah.
I know like power is like one of my favorite things to play with, and for me, it's really about the power more than anything. It's like that energy and that connection, and it's so, I don't know, psychological or
Mm.
energetic, whatever kind of phrase you want to use to it. It sounds like he was able to put you in that space, kind of going into it ahead of time, kind of getting you into that energy, and then so you've been able to
Mm.
apply and take that moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love psychological domination. Again, it adds like depth to it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, like on the other end, like what do you feel like you've learned most from doming, or like, and I'm curious, like with your sub experiences, have you had like the equivalent of like total surrender, like you were able to get with Yosef from the dominatrix standpoint, or is it more kind of stepping into that, but not quite that full space?
Mm, yeah, not necessarily. No, when I dom, surrender is not the word or the feeling, but it's like just straight power. I also love feeling like someone trusts me. Like I love when someone gives their all to me and like fully trusts me. And if we trace that back to childhood trauma, it's my mom, like she never trusted me because I was a crazy kid. So there's like this thing in my psyche has always been like people don't trust me. And so it just felt so lovely to have a sub like completely trust me to be super fucking cruel, but then super loving at the same time. Like I found that extremely healing for me. And then the other piece of that is just really exerting my power and testing my own boundaries. Like I didn't know I had that in me. No one does until you're there.
Yeah, you mentioned like testing your own boundaries. What boundaries did you find within yourself, like as a dom, and like holding that power versus just submitting to it?
Yeah. Well, like my physical power as well. Like it just
Hmm.
you know what? I always used to love wrestling as a kid. Like
Hmm.
I don't know, like wrestling my brother and stuff. And I realized that it's like fun to play with like your power, like how much power you can exert. And so
Hmm.
within doming, there was so much like I'm pretty fucking strong, and I loved using that. And
Hmm.
yeah, that and just psychologically being able to be there's a word for this, um, almost like going into hip, what's the word when you dom someone via hypnosis? Is there a word for this?
I mean, there's like hypnotic play. Like there's literally like
There you go.
hypnosis play. Like you can dom somebody through hypnosis, or there's like
Right.
hypnosis kink, essentially, more or less. Yeah.
Exactly that. So like tuning into like the way my own voice could change.
Hmm.
It was like yeah, just very different pieces of me that I got to own and express and
Yeah.
feel.
Were there any things that you initially thought you're like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna like this, or I'm excited to do this, and then you were like, after you're doing it, you're like, oh fuck no, I'm not like not doing this again, or this is like too much of a kind of a risk thing for you, or where you kind of had to slow down, or whatever that might be. Like
Yeah,
really from the dom space, I'm looking at.
from the dom space, I don't really love degrading.
Hmm.
Like I don't. If I can weave it in at times, but if someone, which I've
Can you
never
just
had
like
this, but
explain like what that means again, just for people who don't have
yes,
necessary context? Yeah.
yeah. So degrading, whole spectrum to it, but it's basically just putting someone down. So pathetic, worm, you stupid piece of shit, you
Hmm.
little bitch, like many different things that one could say. And people who like to be degraded, they just like to be put into a very subservient role.
Hmm.
And I didn't really enjoy that as like a thing itself.
Hmm.
I could mix it in with certain other things coming and flowing and with praise, but solely itself, it just didn't feel good.
Hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely one of those ones there. It seems like degradation or humiliation like can get into the space that's very yeah, I think it has to be blended with something, or it has to
Mm-hmm.
like find a very fine-tuned kind of instrument to do it well, it seems like. But some people, I guess, are just really into it also. So I don't want to, offend anybody's yum, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. What you said, it needs to be blended for me to even enjoy it, which
Yeah.
even when I enjoy being degraded as well, it needs to be weaved in. If I just got degraded and like that was it, I'd feel so sad. Like,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it's a common one that it's like decorative praise is like a pretty common kink essentially,
Oh,
where
what is that?
it's like good little
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That works. We like that.
where, where it's like, oh, it's like this combination. It's like, yeah, there's some like degradingness in there, but there's ultimately kind of like almost like you said, like love behind it, right? Where there's a sense of being cared for and that kind of piece, which I know for me as a submissive is like always a really big part. Like I need to feel like I'm loved throughout it, or
Mm,
like cared for, even if
yeah.
there is, humiliation or degradation or pain or whatever it is. It's like I need to know that this person cares for me. If I feel like you actually feel like I'm worthless or whatever, I mean, it's not even like that I feel upset. I'm just like I don't have any interest in
Mm,
participating in this. Yeah.
yeah.